What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS5 Jailbreak news update. We have a lot of developments to discuss here in this video, as it really feels like we're on the cusp of some pretty game-changing stuff that is going to be coming out for the PS5 pretty soon. We've already had the 60 FPS patches and developer menus released by Illusion, which I've already made a full tutorial for, which you can check out in the description. But of course, in this video, we're going to be focusing on all of the new developments that are going on at the moment, starting with one of the biggest pieces of news that we've had so far, and that is coming from Zeco, where he says that the libhijacker can now run games, but it gets stuck on the splash screen. However, it will be coming soon, ... Of course, we've always kind of thought that it may be possible to run games using the libhijacker. You know, we've got things like the 60 FPS patches and various other things that we know we can do with it. And loading Homebrew was obviously on the table, and therefore loading our decrypted game dumps may also be on the table as well. And apparently it is possible, which I believe it was Astro's Playroom, but he managed to get onto the splash screen, but then it froze. But obviously that's stuff that can be worked on and hopefully fixed to get it to actually boot properly and run. So very exciting stuff there. And we even got the code updated for the libhijacker to include game launching support. So that has been added. Again, it looks like it still has the issues where it gets stuck, but again, that will be worked on and hopefully fixed. One of the things that Zeco clarifies here, he says it goes without saying, but even if game loading does become a reality in the near future, there is the issue that Slayer's Govy payloads only decrypt PS5 demos and PS4 games corresponding to the PS4 SDK of version of 4.03 and below versions. So yeah, the issue at the moment is the way that we decrypt our games is we have to use Slayer's Govy's exploit, his implementation, because he had a payload that would allow you to decrypt your game's executables. So you could basically dump the game from FTP to get all of the game files, but then you still needed the decrypted executables, and Slayer's Govy's payload would allow you to decrypt them. However, it doesn't seem to work with full games. It only decrypts the executable for game demos or freemium apps, which are, you know, apps that don't require a license. So that is one of the issues at the moment. You know, you can dump a game like Astro's Playroom and it will dump the eboot.bin, but if you try and dump a full game like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Demon's Souls, or any of the other full games, if you try and dump those PS5 games, it will just say eboot.failed and it will be 0 bytes. There'll be no data as it fails to dump the eboot, even though it will dump the modules. So that is one of the issues that we have at the moment, is that we don't really have fully decrypted PS5 games because of this issue. Therefore, even if we are able to run our decrypted game dumps, we will not necessarily be able to run full PS5 games straight off the bat unless we get some kind of fix for this payload that will allow it to dump the executables for our PS5 games. Now, of course, we should be able to run our PS4 game dumps on the PS5 if we get this working, because we already have decrypted PS4 games in the form of our fake packages. So we should be able to run PS4, you know, decrypted games on the PS5 once we get this up and running. Now, he does say up to firmware 4.03, which is the equivalent to 9.00, because that's, you know, as high as you can go in terms of dumping games on the PS4 to be able to then run them on the PS5. Obviously, there is the backported ones by CYB1K, which should hopefully work, which normally require a higher firmware to run, but have been backported to work on the older firmwares. So those PS4 games should hopefully run with this as well. Now, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to just install them as a fake package for the PS4 and then run them. It's more likely that we'll have to do stuff like extract the fake package into the raw game files and copy them somewhere on the hard drive in order to launch them with the libhijacker, which is probably similar to the way it worked with the 1.76 jailbreak for the PS4 before we were able to use fake packages, where we had to do it in a similar way with the donor disk payload, where you would run, you know, a game disk and the payload would swap out the files on launch with the files from your decrypted game in the data folder. So you would go to launch one game and it would launch the one in the data folder instead. So it may be something similar to that, or where we just remotely launch the game from the libhijacker from our computer. So we'll have to wait and see how that pans out in the future. There's still obviously work to do, because at the moment it's just freezing on the start screen. And also Homebrew Apps are being developed as well. So Lightning Mods has finally managed to get himself a PS5. He had a donation campaign going on there for a while, but he's managed to get himself a PS5. He's been working closely with Astrelsky, so he is working on getting Homebrew up and running, and he did release a couple of teasers here. One showing him launching an app that just crashes immediately, but obviously the exciting thing here is in order for it to crash, it has to have at first launched it. So it means it was successfully launched, even though it crashed. That is a good step in the right direction. So, and he also shows a screenshot here of the app actually kind of running in the background, where he's got the back to game option showing that it is actually running. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. It seems that we're getting much closer now to being able to run our decrypted game dumps and our Homebrew applications as well. That's all stuff that is being worked on right now. Now, in other news, we also got a Nand Dumper, and this was apparently a collaboration between Spectre and Flat. According to Zeco, it will dump all 3 Nand groups to your USB drive. All 3 dumps will be exactly 64 megabytes, and after you dump, please restart the PS5 if you don't want a shiny brick. So yeah, there is a little bit of a worry here that if you do this, you could end up bricking your PS5 if you do not restart or shut down the PS5 as soon as it has dumped the Nand groups successfully to your USB stick. So that is something that you definitely should be aware of if you're going to do this. I wouldn't really recommend doing it just in case. Now, according to Spectre himself, he says be careful with these payloads because there's a chance something bad could happen and brick could happen because it disables the A53 controller and reads from internal flash, which is also why you should restart after running this. And if you continue doing stuff on your PS5 afterwards, that apparently could brick your PS5. So make sure you restart or shut down if you are going to run this payload to dump your Nand groups. Apparently the purpose of this is to get the boot partitions from the console. And I'm kind of intrigued as to, why, especially if this is a collaboration between Flats and Spectre, why they're wanting this. According to Flats, he just says Zeco wants it to collect stuff for the wiki, which, okay, might be true, I suppose. But, I feel like there might be some more significance behind this. Why does he want the boot partitions from different firmware versions, from 3.0 to 4.51? Is it possible that Flats is, looking to see, how much of the stuff that he discovered on firmware 2.50 is applicable to these higher firmwares by checking the Nand dumps on other firmwares to kind of see, if his keys work on those higher firmwares or if any of the stuff he's discovered is applicable to these higher firmwares, which could be interesting. So we'll have to wait and see what goes on with that. But yeah, if you want to dump your Nand for research to, send it to Flats or Spectre, you can do, I guess. But again, there is a risk of bricking your PS5. And if you don't want your PS5 to become an oversized paperweight, then maybe stay away from this one at the moment. Now, I also want to mention SvenGDK, who has released some handy shortcuts in package form. And this is specifically useful for the web browser because typically in order to set up a web browser shortcut so that it's easier to access the exploit, you had to do things like edit the database file manually, which was pretty tedious to set that up. However, with this, you can just install it as a package file and it will just set up the shortcut automatically for you. Much, much easier. And of course, it's the same shortcut that uses Lethal's host, which will give you the, the web browser, the URL, so you can search for any website you want. And you can also, add websites to your favorites. So very, very useful for quickly setting up your internet browser shortcut. So I definitely recommend that. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that's happening at the moment. It really feels like we're kind of in this transition period from this partial jailbreak to a full jailbreak. And I'm wondering, can we call it a full jailbreak at this point? Once a few of these things that are being worked on get released, like the ability to run game backups or homebrew applications, can we call it a full jailbreak at that point? I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that, because the 1.76, the original jailbreak for the PS4, when that first came out, and even for several months after it came out, you couldn't run game backups, and you couldn't run, you couldn't really do much with it, kind of like how the partial jailbreak is for the PS5. But we called that a full jailbreak because technically we had full control over the system. So it does feel like it's becoming a full jailbreak. We're able to do things like the 60 FPS patches, developer menus. There's going to be cheats, trainers, mod tools, remote debugging software. There's going to be homebrew apps and hopefully the ability to run our game dumps fairly soon as well, all through this libhijacker. So I don't know, it feels like we can maybe start to call it a full jailbreak once more of this stuff comes out. Also, another thing just to mention here at the end is that I'm going to be setting up a PS5 jailbreak tutorials playlist, which I will add pretty soon. So basically, I'm going to add all of my, my recent tutorials in there, like how to install PS5 game updates, as well as how to set up the 60 FPS patches by Illusion. And I'll also be doing a full PS5 Jailbreak tutorial video, which will be the first video in the playlist. And I'll add that in there pretty soon. And I feel like it's just a good time at the moment to make a full setup guide for setting up the PS5 Jailbreak so that you can have everything set up and ready to load any of the new stuff that comes out in the future. Because as you can see, there's a lot of stuff being worked on in the background at the moment. And once all of this stuff starts coming out, it's really going to change things. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.